the lysine ratio? Like lysine.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Basar bhai, it is something like this. Like here, when we make the equation, this for all other issue, it is suppose just opposite. Lysine to methionine, lysine to threonine, lysine to arginine.
Yeah.
Here, suppose this. Here is the equation. Lysine will be fixed.
Yes.
Same. এখানে চেঞ্জ হতে থাকবে. Here will change methionine, threonine, arginine, lysine.
হ্যাঁ।
So that you get the ratio.
ওকে, সো সেটাই মানে লাইসিনটা ফিক্স রেখে বাকিগুলা চেঞ্জ হয়ে তাই তো?
হ্যাঁ, লাইসিনটা ফিক্স থাকবে।
হ্যাঁ, এইটাই জানতে চাচ্ছি।
ওকে, চলো, গট ইট, প্লিজ।
এটা ধরেন এটা তো স্পিসিস ওয়াইজ ডিফারেন্ট হবে। এটা কি আমরা কোনটার জন্য করতেছি বুঝবো কিভাবে?
না, এইটা তো আমরা স্ট্যান্ডার্ড ইকুয়েশন। হ্যাঁ, এইটা তো জাস্ট মানে এইটা ডিভাইডেড বাই এটা মানে মিথিওনিন ডিভাইডেড বাই তো লাইসিন। এটা স্ট্যান্ডার্ড থাকবে। আমরা ফর্মুলায় ওইটা বসাবো কনস্ট্যান্টটা কি আমরা 60 রাখতেছি, 65 রাখতেছি না 40 রাখতেছি, ওইটা ইচ ফর্মুলা স্পেসিস ওয়াইজ।
ওকে, ঠিক আছে।
এটা হলো শুধু রেশিওটা।
I just heard you said that you were, if it is the case, to make it easier to read, like if you want to see 65% instead of 0.65, you have a coefficient here that you can use and put at 100, so that what Allix will show you is the value of nutrient 17 divided by the value of nutrient 106 multiplied by 100.
Okay, it will come in percentage.
Yeah, that, and in that case, to make sure, you can say that it is not the standard value, it is in percentage. And that is probably more going to show you the value as you are used to seeing them.
Correct. Yeah, that will be more convenient.
So I've saved this example so that if you want, you can create the rest for cysteine, threonine, and so on.
Madam, this equation, all equation, for example, enzyme equation or any other equation, is there any now you have any common equation?
So in this library, we only do ratios. So we only do one nutrient divided by another nutrient. If you do need more equations for calculating values, we have a dedicated menu where you can create equations if needed. We will come back to this in a few minutes when we look into raw material profile.
Excuse me, another question is like, this is for amino acid. If we want to calculate like energy protein ratio, this is also come to this same section?
Yes. If the equation that you want is just a ratio between two nutrients, it is in this nutrient ratio library that it should be created, because those ratios would not be linear from the raw material to the formula. If the equations that you want are linear, so sums, multiplication, or these kind of things, then that can be calculated from the equation menu that we will come to in a few minutes. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So, any question on what we've seen so far on the ratios or on the nutrients? Okay, so then we are going to move forward to the raw material library, which we have once again by default on the desktop here, or you can find from the raw material menu under raw material library. In here, we will see the description of the ingredients. At the top here, you can see this first white field is a field for code. So if you know exactly what ingredient you want to open, you can type in either the code in this field or the name in the second field to find the ingredient you're looking for. Otherwise, you have this zoom here. Oh, I've lost the control on the AnyDesk.
It's moving, cursor is moving, Charlotte.
Okay, no, it's back. Sorry, it was frozen for a second on my side. So this in the middle here is what we call the zoom icon, and it can be used to show the full list. So that way I can access and see everything that is in this list. And I can find the ingredient that I'm looking for and double click on the one I want to see. As there is a lot of ingredients in here, another way of finding the ingredient you're looking for, if you don't know the exact code, is to go to the name field here, and you can add percentage. And I click the Enter key, will show in the zoom only the ingredients that have soy somewhere in the name. So you see the list is a lot shorter, and it might be easier for me to find the actual soy I'm looking for.
এটা নোট করেন নেন একটু, এটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট লাগবে, এভরি স্টেপে লাগবে, কিন্তু এই পার্সেন্টেজ সাইন সার্চ করার জন্য লাগবে এটা।
So is it clear on selecting an ingredient?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so for the example, I am going to take this one, for example, the soybean meal 46. I can double click and that will open the ingredient. Since this box at the top is ticked, what I see in this grid are every single nutrient that have a value setup. And I can see for each nutrient the value that is currently saved in the database and a blue column that I can modify if I want to update the profile. Okay?
Modify means?
So if I modify this ingredient, it means that next time I calculate a diet with this ingredient, then it will take the new value.
তো মানে
for example,
যদি আমরা চেঞ্জ করতে চাই, যদি কোনো ডাটা চেঞ্জ করতে চাই আমরা নিউট্রিয়েন্ট প্রোফাইল, যেরকম প্রোটিন আছে 46.08, আমরা ধরেন এরপরে আপনার 45 আসলো, এই ব্লু কলামটা আমরা চেঞ্জ করে তো সেভ করলে মাস্টার ডাটাবেসে সেভ হয়ে যাবে
সব স্পিসিসের জন্য।
হ্যাঁ, এটা মাস্টার ডাটাবেস, এইটা সবার জন্য হবে, এর পরেও আসবে, আপনি প্ল্যান্ট ওয়াইজ করতে পারবেন পরে ওটা।
ওকে।
So, madam, I have a question regarding there. If I change the protein, then corresponding amino acid will change, or I have to manually change?
So currently, if you change protein, it will only change protein because there is no scenario, there is no equation associated. If we do create equations and associate them to the raw material, then changing protein might impact the rest of the profiles.
So in that case, also I have to.
সৈকত, The protein ratio, like for 46, 46, if we get like 44 instead of 46, the other ratio is the other nutrients like our other amino profile. It is not depends on the ratio. It is
currently it does not, because the equations do not exist yet. But you can create the equations.
Madam, can you set the equation for us just for dummy basis, only for soybean and protein, so that we can go? We can want to see the scenario when we 46 to 44, what is the only amino acid change that we want to see?
So the quotient for amino acids compared to protein are in the database?
No, it is not set here, but we have to set that coefficient. Just you can show how we can make the equations. Once we take the like, I'll provide the coefficient that we can put in the equations.
Okay, so
with the just একটা জিনিস সেটা হচ্ছে যেমন আমরা 46% যেমন আমরা লাইসিন পাই হচ্ছে ধরেন 2.7, ঠিক আছে?
হ্যাঁ
48 এর পাই হচ্ছে ধরেন লাইসিন 2.8। হ্যাঁ, এটা তো আসলে কোনো রেশিওর উপর ডিপেন্ড করে না।
না, এটা হলো আপনার কোএফিশিয়েন্ট।
রাইট।
হ্যাঁ, ওই কোএফিশিয়েন্টগুলো আছে।
এটা তো ধরেন আপনার প্রোটিনটা চেঞ্জ হইলো, ওইটা চেঞ্জ নাও হইতে পারে।
না, আপনি যখন কোএফিশিয়েন্ট বসাইবেন, যেরকম এই আপনার যেগুলো অ্যামাইনো অ্যাসিড কোম্পানিগুলো একটা তো ডিরাইভ করে দিছে তো কোএফিশিয়েন্ট। আপনি যেরকম 46 এ তো লাইসিনে তো কোএফিশিয়েন্ট ধরেন সামথিং 90, 88 বা 86। আপনি যখন কোএফিশিয়েন্টটা তো বসায় দিবেন, আপনার যখন প্রোটিন চেঞ্জ হবে ওই কোএফিশিয়েন্টের মতো করে
ওইটাও চেঞ্জ
হবে। হ্যাঁ,
ওকে।
হ্যাঁ ভাই ওইটা হচ্ছে কি, যেটা আপনার কোএফিশিয়েন্ট ভ্যালু যেই সূত্রটা আছে সেটা হচ্ছে প্রোটিন ভ্যালু ইনটু কোএফিশিয়েন্ট পার্সেন্টেজ। সূত্রটা তো তাই ভাইয়া, বুঝছেন ভাইয়া? প্রোটিন ইনটু কোএফিশিয়েন্ট পার্সেন্টেজ এগুলো যদি একটা দেখায় দেয় তাহলে আমরা করতে পারি অন্যগুলো।
চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে না অ্যামাইনো অ্যাসিডটা?
হ্যাঁ, আপনি ইকুয়েশন বসাইলে অটোমেটিক্যালি চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে তখন অ্যামাইনো অ্যাসিডটা।
তাহলে ইকুয়েশনটাকে বসাইতে হবে আর কি।
হ্যাঁ, ইকুয়েশনটা বসাতে আমরা একটা এক্সাম্পল দেখা নিতে হবে এখন।
হ্যাঁ, আমার মনে এটা একটু দেখে নিলে ভালো হয় তাহলে।
Charlotte, you just show one example, like you take the lysine, you take some coefficient according
to create the equation, the first thing that we would need to do in your case is that we do have the amino acids, but we do not have the coefficient that links the two. So we would need to create new nutrients for the coefficients. So I could come in this nutrient library again, add a new line, and say that this would be the coef of lysine per crude protein, for example.
Yes.
And then I can save this nutrient. And next step is to go into the equation screen that is under the settings menu to create the correct equation. So in here, I can once again insert a line, say that this is going to calculate lysine. I can put my code and my name for the equation. Group of matrix at the moment, since there is a single matrix in your database, I would not worry too much about this, and you just put in matrix 1. Then we select the nutrient that is going to be calculated, and lysine was 106. And finally, we put in the equation. To put the equation in the cell so that you have the blinking cursor, and then in multiplied by the value of my coefficient.
Yes.
Depending on how you set up the coefficient, if you want to set up 20 in the coefficient, then I would recommend you add a divided by 100. If you set up the value as 0.2, you don't need that 100. It depends on how you have the nutrients.
The better you put divided by 100, because generally we put a coefficient like 20, 30 like that.
Okay, so that is the kind of equations that you would set up, and you would have the exact same thing for methionine, cysteine, and so on. So you could have all of them in here. I'm actually going to create the methionine one as well, just so we have a couple of lines in our scenario. So I create the nutrient for the coefficient. I only have to do that once. And then I go back to my equation library. I add my new line. I select my group of matrix, always matrix 1. I select the nutrient that is going to be calculated. And those are the equations that I create. If you want to make reading the equation easier, you can right-click in the cell and select name so that it is easier to read what equation is set up. So it is very easy to go from the code to the name. Okay?
Okay.
Once my equations are created, I need to put them together in a scenario, because in here I will have every single equation that I might want to apply at any point. But on some raw material, you might apply some of the equations, and on other, you can apply other equations. So the next step is to go into this scenario here, so that we can create a new scenario or open an existing one if I use the zoom to set up the equation in the order we want them to apply. Here, let's create an amino acid scenario, for example. And I can go in the grid here and insert the equations that I want to apply. And these equations have an order, so they need to apply in the proper order. For example, if you calculate both the lysine and the digestible lysine, you need to calculate lysine first and have the equation for digestible lysine below.
Yeah.
All clear on these scenarios?
Charlotte, one thing, as in the nutrient, now we have put the coefficient for lysine and methionine.
Yes.
Same way, I think we have to put the digestibility factor for lysine and methionine. That
exactly,
will,
yes.
I'll reflect in digestible lysine and digestible methionine, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
any coefficient that you want to create, I would highly recommend you create them as nutrients. That way you have a single equation that will be correct in any ingredient, and you just put the value of the coefficient depending on the ingredient.
What is this last checkbox, like non-linear?
That one does not apply here.
Okay.
Yeah, it does not apply in this case. So now I'm saving this scenario, and creating this scenario is something that you will do once, and then unless you change your equations, you will not have to do this again.
Like this can be applied to other raw material, right?
Exactly. So if I go back to my raw material library, what I can do now is so most likely you would have the coefficient set. So I can go and pick up my coefficients. And maybe this one would be 20%, and maybe this one would be 12%.
Correct.
So what I can do then is select my scenario here at the top. I would recommend that most scenarios are selected as automatic, meaning that any change that you do will apply the equation automatically. Flash scenario requires the user to go and apply the scenario every time they want the calculation to run. So it is less, well, it is not automatic. It is for something that you do not want to apply every time. For amino acids and such, I think they should always be up to date. So most likely you want the scenario to be automatic. Okay?
Yes, it should be automatic. Correct.
And I would also recommend that this generate scenario detail box is always ticked, because it is very useful. It will allow you to see the equations directly from this screen. So now I can select my scenario. And as you can see, I have symbols that appeared. And what these symbols show is that this nutrient is used in an equation, and it is directly linked to this calculation, because this nutrient now has an equal sign because it is calculated by the equation. And if any change is done to the protein, you can see that it is automatically applied to the nutrients that are calculated. Okay?
Yes.
So I do not want to save this scenario on this raw material since my coefficients were not correct values. But I will leave the equations in your database so that, Amit, you can go in and complete things properly.
Yeah. Charlotte, once again you show how you have applied that automatic scenario. Just you have click and go.
Scenario, you just select the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And when you select it, it will automatically apply. You see how this has gone to 0 because I do not have the coefficients set up.
Okay.
Are you associated? It will stay here for this ingredient.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
So when you have the scenario properly validated and properly set, and you have all of the coefficients properly set as well, what you can do is that in the raw material library, the raw material menu, sorry, you have an automatic scenario screen.
Mm-hmm.
So when you know that your scenario is correct, you can go in here and you can insert any ingredient or all of the ingredients, if that makes sense. And you can decide to pick up the amino acid scenario and right-click to initialize so that this same scenario is associated to every single ingredient.
Yeah, but Charlotte, the thing is that we have to make different, scenario for different raw material, because the this coefficient we will be using for soya, this coefficient will be different. For
Yes,
sunflower,
but
this coefficient will be different.
Since the coefficient is a nutrient that is on the ingredient, the equation that we have created, this equation is always true. It is just that the value of the coefficient is in the ingredient. So it is the same scenario for every ingredient.
Yes, it will take from the coefficient from the particular raw material. Correct.
Exactly. That's the point of creating those coefficient as nutrient, so that it is the same equation for everyone. That way you do not have to question which scenario should apply. But if the same scenario should not apply to everything, you could have a different scenario for a specific ingredient that does not have the same equation applied. That's not a problem. Okay? So this run scenario as automatic on multiple ingredient, I would recommend only doing it when you have validated the scenario, because otherwise you run the risk of modifying your profile with the wrong values.
True.
So is it clear now on creating the equations and applying them on the raw materials?
বোঝা গেছে সৈকত ফোনে?
Practice one or two, then I can think we have to, that will be easy for us. But one question is from my side: is it for user specific or administrative specific?
Equations will be shared by all users, and once it is associated to the raw material, it will be done for everyone.
Charlotte, his question was like, once we make the equation and all, once everything is done, every day we don't need to change the equations or even this coefficients. Okay, coefficient the equations by mistake also.
Yes, yes.
So currently, I do not think that any rights management has been set up in your database. I would need to check that with Ben after. But without rights management, then no, it's not locked. So a user could decide to take out the scenario.
No, that has been already discussed with Ben. This right management is there in our this package.
Into this.
অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটর এবং ইউজার মানে এটা কাজের ডিফারেন্স গুলো কি থাকবে?
না না না, ওটা এখন ওইটা নিয়ে খুব একটা চিন্তা করেন না। ইউজার হলো আমরা যারা কাজ করব, সাপোজ উই আর ইউজার, ঠিক আছে। অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটর কিছু চেঞ্জ করতে হয়, এগুলো বাসার ভাইকে আপনি মেল করলেন যে আমি করতে যাচ্ছি, তখন উনি সেটাতে পারমিশন দিলে, ওই জাস্ট লক ওপেন করে দিলে আপনি তখন ওইটাতে কারেকশন এই এই করতে পারবেন। আদারওয়াইজ কি হবে, ওটা তো লক থাকবে, হ্যাঁ, যাতে কোনো চেঞ্জ না। এটা কারণ এটাই, আমরা যদি সবসময় ধর ইকুয়েশনে তো ঢুকি উইদাউট প্রপার ফলো আপ, হয়তো বাই মিস্টেক কিছু একটা তো চেঞ্জ হয়ে গেল, একটা ইকুয়েশন চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাওয়া মানে সব র মেটেরিয়ালে এফেক্ট পড়বে, পুরো ডাটাবেস তো চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে। তো ওটাই হলো অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটিভ হলো একটা কন্ট্রোল, আপনাকে যখন পারমিশন দিব সেই চেঞ্জটা আপনি করতে পারবেন।
এখানে যে ডাটাবেসটা থাকবে এটা কি প্ল্যান্ট ওয়াইজ আলাদা আলাদা থাকবে নাকি
হ্যাঁ
এটা
হ্যাঁ
কম?
হ্যাঁ, প্ল্যান্ট ওয়াইজ আলাদা থাকবে। প্ল্যান্ট ওয়াইজ আপনি যখন বগুড়া প্ল্যান্টে চেঞ্জ করবেন, ওই তখন ওটা বগুড়া প্ল্যান্টেই চেঞ্জ হবে, এটা তখন ভালুকার প্ল্যান্টে তো চেঞ্জ হবে না। ওইটা আস্তে 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 এরপর আপনাকে দেখাবে, ওইটা তো ডেরিভেটিভ ক্রিয়েট করতে হবে পার্টিকুলার প্ল্যান্টের জন্য, আর ওই ডেরিভেটিভটা ওই প্ল্যান্টেই চেঞ্জ হবে ওটা। ওকে, yeah, Charlotte, you carry on. What was the
Yeah.
question that I think that you were coming later on, how to create these derivatives? That is
Yeah, exactly.
what?
That was
Yeah,
the thing I was going to go on now.
yeah, please.
So currently you see that this ingredient, when I was in the Zoom, I could see that the ingredient, that one, is set up as being a leader. Leader ingredient are the default if a factory, if a plant in Allix does not have a specific profile for the factory. So if we do not have specific profile, we take this leader by default. But we can see that for this soya, we have currently here 3 derivatives that exist. It means that 3 different factories, 3 different Allix plants have a profile that is slightly different for this ingredient. In the main Zoom, if I do a sorting on code and go back to 202, I can see that plants 1, 2, and 3 have their own derivatives. You see how these ingredients are derivatives, and they are linked directly to 100, 202. So what it means is that if I am working on plant 1 and I ask to add soybean meal 46, this is not the profile I would use, but I would instead use the specific value that was set up for this Valuka cattle. And the profile would be slightly different here. Okay?
Madam, I have one question regarding there. Suppose separate user and separate plan user, they are make up new derivatives based on their requirement. In that case, that user name or tuple is shown in the table. Yeah.
So here we already have derivatives. So if I try and go to an ingredient that is that does not have one. Let's go this one. This 105 does not have derivative currently. So what is set up currently is that all plants should use this profile. If one of the user realizes that for this ingredient that might already be calling for that ingredient, will call for the proper derivative instead. For the training, I don't want to modify, so I'm going to say no. But that creates my new derivative specifically associated to plant 1. Okay.
So it is only for plant 1, not for plant 2 or 3.
Yeah, and like once we create this derivative for plant, it will be restricted to plant 1 raw material only.
Can do as well. Sorry, go ahead.
What is okay, I have one related question. So you make a derivative in one ingredient. In that case, what will be the ingredient code? Same code or 01, 02, like that?
So in the raw material library, you will see the original code followed by the plant code. But in the formulas, you will only see the main code and a color that is different to show that it is a specific profile for the plant.
So how I can confirm that the code I use for the plant 1 is exactly the same ingredient found in my formulation?
So I am going to pick up a formula and hopefully I have derivative in it. Yes. So here we are moving a bit up. We'll come back to this next session, most likely. I am in a formula and I can see all the raw materials that are suggested. You can choose derivative so that you have the description of what is the leader, what is the ingredient that should be used in plant 1, and what is the ingredient that we are currently using. Okay?
Okay, fine. But my question is, why we need derivatives? If we have set up an equation, then why we require to go for a derivatives? Because you you told now that if soybean 44 to 46, I have to change the basic equation. The matrix will be automatically changed. So I require the derivatives.
So the equation will make sure that the nutrients are coherent together in this specific ingredient. But what might happen is that in one of the factory, your wheat flour has 10.6, and in another factory, you're actually at 10.4. So you want to use the right value for the right plant without affecting the work of your colleagues. That's what the derivatives are for. That way, with this setup, people working with the leader would still be working with the 10.6, while in specifically plant 1, we would be using a 10.4. Okay? Is that clear here?
Yes, Charlotte, you can go ahead.
Okay. So I've been using this leader column for comparison. It is very interesting to have it if you're working with derivatives, because it will allow you to actually see the difference between what is used in one factory compared to the default. So I'm going to clean up this ingredient that I created that is not correct. I'm just going to delete this and pick an actual proper derivatives. So if I pick up this derivative for plant 1 of my soybean meal 46, I can see that in the default, I have 46.8 protein, while the derivative is at 45. So it is interesting to see the difference. Yes?
Madam, you see here you see update column, there is lot of
Yes, there is different dates here. Those are it will be from now on. It is just that when these were changed, there was only a single user on the database. So that information was not recorded because there was only a single one. Now that
this
okay.
this right management has not activated yet, and so long
Right.
single user was there, so it is not reflected. Once we put multiple user, so that name it will reflect there that who is changing and at what time he is changing.
It is
exactly.
request for the safety of the database. Safety of the database.
Yes.
অমিতদা এখানে একটা প্ল্যান্টের ধরেন আমাদের তো ধরেন 4টা প্ল্যান্ট, এখন একটা প্ল্যান্টের এট এ টাইম কি একজনই কাজ করতে পারবে না দুইজন কাজ করতে পারবে?
না, একটা প্ল্যান্টে সবসময় মাল্টি আমাদের 3টা ইউজার তো
হ্যাঁ,
একটা প্ল্যান্টে তো 3জন কাজ করতে পারবে।
প্ল্যান্ট মানে কি ফিড মিল নাকি?
ফিড মিল,
একসঙ্গে
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ একসাথেও কাজ করতে পারবে।
ঠিক আছে।
Charlotte, just clarify this once, as we are having 3 user.
Yes.
So what I believe, like 3 person can use this software at a time. Suppose all 3 person wants to work with different formulation in the Valuka plant only, in a single plant.
Yes.
Can 3 person work in a single plant at the same time?
Yes. As long as you don't work on the same exact formula, you can be working on the same plant at the same time. That is not a problem.
Yes.
But not for like 3 person cannot use the broiler formula at a time, right?
Now, a single formula you cannot use, like pre-starter you are using. All 3 cannot use in the pre-starter.
Okay. But one can use broiler and one can use layer, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so in here, one last thing on this comparison with the leader. To see this column, I have done it for the admin, but to see this column, each user should go to Tools, and then to comparison value settings.
তখন শব্দ হচ্ছে সরি
Sorry, is there a question?
No, some noise was coming. কার থেকে noise আসছে? একটু mute করে রাখেন না?
Okay, so if you could not hear me properly, to have this leader column that will allow you, when you're looking at a derivative ingredient, that will allow you to compare the derivative value to the leader, to the default value, you would need to go to Tools and then to Comparison Values Settings, where you can tick the leader box. If that box is ticked, then the column will show here. If it is not ticked, we do not have the comparison anymore. So when working with derivative, I do recommend to always keep that box ticked, because it is usually interesting to be able to compare easily the value of the derivative to the value of the leader.
Yes, true. Charlotte, like last time we were seeing some color change. If suppose from the leader, if there is any difference, it was showing some color change. How it was showing, now it is not showing that color change?
So the color change will show if we have sensitivity set up. So this at the top here.
Okay.
So if we want, because here indeed we can read that there's differences, but it is not easy. What we could do is define which of the 3 columns we want to use as the reference. For example, let's take the current, this one, as the reference.
Yes.
And we can say that everything that is more than 1% different is significantly different. That way, anything that is more than 1% above, this reference is going to show in red.
Correct,
And
yes.
everything that is below the reference with more than 1% difference will show in this violet blue color. Okay?
Yes.
And some values might be different, but they are not different enough to trigger this sensitivity and to trigger the highlight. Okay?
This difference is lower than 1%.
Exactly.
Make it 0.5% so that they can understand.
So if I put at, well, 0.5 is not, but if I put it at 10%, for example, then a lot of them don't highlight anymore because the difference is less than this 10%. So the level of what is a relevant difference is up to you. You can change this value at any time. Okay?
Fine.
So these settings of difference and of reference, you would need to set it up the first time you connect with each of your user, because this settings is per user. The same way, the fact that I put this column here is per user.
Amit, the leader ইয়েটা একটু explain করবেন কি?
লিডার হলো দাদা, এই যে আমি বলছি, এই দেখেন এখানে র মেটেরিয়াল কোডটা দেখছেন?
হ্যাঁ।
100200, এই যে এখানে একটা তো ডেরিভেটিভ আসছে 01, মানে এই র মেটেরিয়ালটা সোয়াবিন 46টা, এটা হলো 1 নম্বর প্ল্যান্টের জন্য, ভালুকা প্ল্যান্টের জন্য। এই যে এখানে আপনি যাই চেঞ্জ করবেন, যেরকম 45 রে আপনি 45.5 করলেন, এটা আপনার শুধু চেঞ্জ হলো কিন্তু আপনার ভালুকা ফিট প্ল্যান্টে। এখন অন্য জায়গাতে লিডার মানে যেটা মেন ডাটাবেসে যেটা আছে ওইটা হলো,
লিডারটা কি রেফারেন্সটা?
হ্যাঁ, মেন ডাটাবেসে যেটা আছে
ওকে,
এটা হলো আপনার 46 আছে, কিন্তু অন্যান্য প্ল্যান্টের ক্ষেত্রে আপনার এটা 46 দেখাবে, কিন্তু ভালুকাতে শুধু আমি চেঞ্জ করছি, ভালুকাতে এটা আপনার 45। তো এটা হচ্ছে তো রেফারেন্সটা, মানে মেইন ডাটাবেজে কি আছে এটা।
তাহলে আমি কি এটাকে বলতে পারি মানে লিডারটা হচ্ছে রেফারেন্সটা আর ভ্যালুটা হচ্ছে যেটা এক্স্যাক্টলি যেটা আছে।
হ্যাঁ, এক্স্যাক্টলি এক্স্যাক্টলি।
মানে লিডারটা আছে আমার মেইনলি হচ্ছে মাস্টার ফাইলে অথবা ডাটাবেজে, আর ভ্যালুটা হচ্ছে ভালুকায় যেটা আসলে এক্সিস্ট করতেছে।
হ্যাঁ, প্ল্যান্ট ওয়াইজ, কারেক্ট
ওকে।
কারেক্ট কারেক্ট। আর ভ্যালু আর কারেন্টের মধ্যে দেখেন, এই
হ্যাঁ
যে ভ্যালুতে আমি চেঞ্জ করলাম ভালুকা প্ল্যান্টে,
হ্যাঁ
কিন্তু এখনো অ্যাপ্লাই হয় না, এখানে কারেন্টে 45ই আছে, কিন্তু আমি যখন
হ্যাঁ
সেভ করব এই দেখেন কারেন্টে চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে, এই যে কারেন্টে চেঞ্জ হয়ে গেল তখন।
ওকে।
And as you can see from the discussion we had earlier, now that we have multiple users, we do set up that it was the admin account that has changed this value today. And we also see who is the latest person that has changed the raw material in general here. Okay.
Okay.
I'll just put that back to the 45 that we had, just if that makes differences on the formulas. So is there any more question on this raw material management? No, it's all clear? Okay, so one last thing in here, under the File menu, you can use Save As if you want to duplicate the current ingredient to create a new one. So that could be interesting if you have a new ingredient coming in that is slightly different than something that you already have. You can use this Save As to duplicate. Okay.
ওকে, এটা একটু আপনারা একটু দেখেন, এটা আপনাদের তো লাগবে যখন র মেটেরিয়াল তো বানাইবেন, ধরেন এখন 46, আপনার 47 এর একটা র মেটেরিয়াল ই করবেন, আপনি সিম্পল এই 46টাকে তো কপি করে নেন, সব ডাটা এসে গেল, এরপর 47 এ যা যা চেঞ্জ করা সেটাতে চেঞ্জ করে নিলেন। কারণ আপনার নতুন বানালে কি হবো, নতুন বানাইতে গেলে প্রতিটা আপনার এই আপনার নিউট্রিয়েন্ট আবার প্রতিটা আলাদা করে করে বসানো, প্রতিটার আবার আপনার ভ্যালু অল এ টু জেড ভ্যালু বসাতে লাগবে, ওটা কিন্তু প্রচুর টাইম টেকিং। এই জন্য সিম্পল এক্সিস্টিং র মেটেরিয়ালটা কপি করে নেন, ওখানে যা ভ্যালুতে চেঞ্জ করার আপনি চেঞ্জ করে দেন। ধরেন এই যে আমরা এই দেন আপনার কাছে হাইপ্রোস হয়ে আসলো 50%, আপনি দরকার 46টা তো কপি করলেন, কপি করে শুধু এই ভ্যালুতে আপনি চেঞ্জ করে দিলেন, আপডেট করে সেভ করে দিলেন, আপনার 50% সোয়া হয়ে গেল। ওকে, ক্লিয়ার?
হ্যাঁ দাদা, কিন্তু এটা তো শুধু প্রোটিনটা সিপিটা চেঞ্জ হইলো, বাকিগুলো তো আর চেঞ্জ হইলো না।
না, সব চেঞ্জ করতে হবে, সেটা আপনাকে, আপনি যদি ইকুয়েশন থাকে, ইকুয়েশন থাকলে অটোমেটিক্যালি চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে,
ওই যে কোএফিশিয়েন্ট দিয়ে।
হ্যাঁ, ওই কোফিশিয়েন্ট দিয়ে অটোমেটিক যখন প্রোটিনটা চেঞ্জ করবেন ওটা সব চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে। হ্যাঁ, আর 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 কিছু জিনিস আপনার ম্যানুয়ালি তো করতে হবে। ফর এক্সাম্পল ধরেন এই টোটাল অ্যাশ, হ্যাঁ, ধরেন হাইপ্রোতে একটু কম থাকবে, এটা আপনাদের ম্যানুয়ালি চেঞ্জ করে নিলেন 5.5।
ওকে, ওটা মানে ল্যাবের ডাটার উপর বেস করে এটা চেঞ্জটা, মানে জেনারেল একটা
ডাটার উপর বেস করে, কারেক্ট।
ঠিক আছে।
Yes, Charlotte.
Okay, so we are going to leave this raw material library, and under raw material menu there is two screens that I want to show you. The first is this by nutrient screen. This is going to be very interesting to set up, for example, the coefficient we were talking about, because in this screen you can select a specific nutrient, for example, For example, I can select crude protein, and with this box ticked, I will see the value of protein in every ingredient. What I can do as well here is that I could pick up my coefficient and I could insert the ingredients that I want to put value for, and then put in the proper value, like 20%, and so on. And I can put the coefficients very easily from this raw material by nutrient screen.
That is, we don't need to open each and every raw material every time.
Exactly. And this grid.
অমিত আবার একটু বলেন তো যে এভরি টাইম কি ওপেন করতে হবে না র ম্যাটেরিয়াল?
না না, এখন ধরেন যেরকম আমরা এখন এই ধরেন কোফিশিয়েন্ট অফ লাইসিন লাইসিন ধরেন আমরা তো বসাবো এখন, ঠিক আছে? এখন যদি আপনি ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালি বসাইতে যান, আপনি প্রথমে মেজটা ডাবল ক্লিক করে মেজ খুললেন, মেজে বসাইলেন, আবার মেজটা সেভ করলেন, আবার ব্রোকেন রাইসে গেলেন, আবার হুইটে গেলেন, একটা একটা করে করতে হবে। আপনি যখন এই অপশনটা তো ইউজ করবেন, এটার মধ্যে একটা নিউট্রিয়েন্ট নিয়ে নিলেন আর সব র মেটেরিয়াল গুলা নিয়ে নিলেন। এইখানে শুধু এই লাইনটার মধ্যে আপনি সব যখন আপডেট করে দিলেন কোফিশিয়েন্টটা, অটোমেটিক্যালি প্রত্যেকটা তো র মেটেরিয়ালে এই যেটা ছিল কোফিশিয়েন্ট অফ প্রোটিন টু লাইসিন, এটা প্রতিটা র মেটেরিয়ালে সেভ হয়ে গেল। এটা
ওকে,
সাপোজ ফর এক্সাম্পল এই কয়টা তো র মেটেরিয়ালে ধরেন আপনি এখন ধরেন ল্যাবের ডাটা আসলো, আপনি দেখলেন প্রোটিন গুলো তো চেঞ্জ হয়ে গেছে। এখন কি হবে, আপনি যদি প্রতিটা প্রোটিন চেঞ্জ করতে যান, র মেটেরিয়াল লাইব্রেরি গিয়ে মেজ খুলবেন, মেজে চেঞ্জ করবেন, হুইট খুলবেন, হুইটে চেঞ্জ করবেন, এরকম 2-3টা করতে পারেন, কিন্তু আপনার 300 র মেটেরিয়াল আছে। আপনি তখন কি করবেন, এই প্রথমে এই জাস্ট আরো র মেটেরিয়াল সিলেক্ট করে এইখানে গিয়া এই দেন প্রোটিনে ক্লিক করলাম।
ওকে,
সব র মেটেরিয়াল এই যে প্রোটিন, এখন যদি প্রোটিন চেঞ্জ করতে আমি একটার পর একটা পটাপট সবগুলো চেঞ্জ করে ফেলতে পারলাম।
তাহলে সব ফর এক্সাম্পল তখন সব মেজের প্রোটিন চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, একদম একদম। এই ধর আপনি সয়াবিনের প্রোটিন চেঞ্জ করবেন, এটা হলে কি আপনি একসাথে চেঞ্জ করতে পারলেন সবগুলো, একটা একটা করতে হবে না। আদারওয়াইজ কি করতে হবে আমি বলছি, তো নর্মাল সিনারিওতে যদি আমরা এটা ইউজ না করি, নর্মাল সিনারিওতে আপনি ধরেন র মেটেরিয়ালে গেলেন, র মেটেরিয়াল লাইব্রেরিতে গেলেন, এই যে র মেটেরিয়াল খুঁজলেন, এই যে একটা একটা করে আপনি মেজে ধরেন, এই যে মেজ ওপেন করলেন, এইখানে আপনি তো চেঞ্জ করবেন। এটা ধরুন চেঞ্জ করে আবার আপনার সেভ করবেন, সেভ করে এর থেকে করবেন, বাইরে হবেন, আবার র মেটেরিয়ালে যাবেন।
না সেটা ঠিক আছে, কিন্তু আমরা তো ধরেন আমরা যদি ধরেন মেজেরই বলি, মেজের প্রোটিনেই আমরা দেখি যে সোর্স টু সোর্স বা ইয়েতে প্রায় 0.5 থেকে 0.8% পর্যন্ত প্রোটিনটা ভ্যারি করে মেজের ক্ষেত্রে। তো এইটা তো অনেক না?
হ্যাঁ, ওই ক্ষেত্রে যদি ধরেন আমরা ইন্ডিয়া মেজ আছে, ব্রাজিল মেজ আছে, আমরা যদি মেজের আলাদা একটা তো হইতে পারে যে প্ল্যান্টের যে মেজ ইউজ করছে, ধরেন আপনার এই আপনার 10,000 টন মেজ আইলো, আমরা অন বেসিস অফ ল্যাবের প্যারামিটার অনুযায়ী চেঞ্জ করে নিলাম।
হ্যাঁ,
আদারওয়াইজ আপনি ধরেন স্পেসিফিকেশনে রেখে দিলেন মেজ ইন্ডিয়া, মেজ ব্রাজিল, ওইটা সেট থাকে।
কারেক্ট,
দুইটা টাইপের তো করা যায়। এখন ল্যাবের ডাটা করে চেঞ্জ করে নিলে হলো। আর এটা হলো, হ্যাঁ, আর এইটা হলো যেটা উনি বলতেছে, আপনি ধরেন এখন যেরকম আমাদের সেটিং চলতেছে, আপনি ধরেন লাইসিন ভ্যালুটা তো সেট করবেন, ডাইস্টেবল লাইসিন এই ধরেন চেক করবেন, ধরেন এটাই নিয়ে আপনি পরপর চেক করে নিলেন যে সব ঠিক আছে কিনা। আলটিমেটলি এটা হলো আপনি একসাথে দেখতে পাচ্ছেন।
বুঝতে পারছি।
Yes, Charlotte, please go ahead.
Okay. So this raw material by nutrient will allow comparison and settings for a single nutrient. What you can also do is have raw material by column this time. And the difference is that in raw material by column, you can have multiple nutrients at the same time. First thing is to decide if we want the nutrients in columns or if we want them in lines. Currently, we have the nutrients in columns,
Yeah.
meaning that the raw materials will be in line. To insert lines, it is as usual, you go to the grid, you either use the insert key or you right click in the top of the corner to insert after. And then you can select all of the ingredients that you want to see. Then to add columns, we use this icon here. And we can select all of the nutrients that we want to see. And that way we have them in a grid like this. If we just want to compare the value, we can hide these valid and update columns. And that way we have all the crude protein, all the, I don't know what TA is, but crude fiber and so on.
And that is ether extract.
If we want to add more,
then if you want more lines, you just
like
use
moisture,
insert. If you want more columns, you go add columns. And you can pick up whatever nutrients you want to add and add them.
okay.
Depending on what you want to do, you can move things around to switch the nutrients from columns to lines. For example, here, what I've done is I put my raw material in columns, meaning that a line is a single nutrient, meaning that I can use the same sensitivity we saw earlier on this grid. So I can ask to highlight everything that is 10% or above different from my first column. So as you can see, 7.3 is not significantly different from 7.9, but 12 is significantly higher. Okay.
For different raw material.
Yes. And the sensitivity here in this grid will always take first column as a reference. If I want to change the reference, I can pick the column that I want and drag it to the first position. And this is now the reference for the code. Okay.
Yes.
So that is raw material by column. And it is very easy here to do copy and paste. If you have the value, so for example, what we could do is go back to my nutrient in columns, take out all of the nutrients and add all of the coefficients, for example. And you could set that up in Excel and copy and paste in your Allix. Okay?
Yes.
So that is the raw material by column screen. So any other question on raw materials?
So if we want to choose by the price, any raw material, if you want to choose by price.
Price is the next step. It's what we are going to move to now if raw material profiles is all clear.
Yeah. Please carry on.
Okay. So to finish today, we are going to see the tools that are in this price menu. So as we've said at the beginning, prices are per Allix plant. So the first thing that you need to do is select the plant that you want to look at the price for. And then you can go to the zoom at the top to select the price list that you want to look at. Okay, and in here, let's take January 1, for example. When I pick up the price list, since that entered price is ticked, I see automatically all of the ingredients that have a price in the list. Okay?
Yes.
Once again, you have current, which is what is saved in the database, and price in blue, which is what you can modify so that you have the difference. If you save, the price value goes to the current. Did not hear the end of your sentence.
No, from this window, can we modify this active column? Suppose I want to, the tick of this December and this November. It can be done from here, but for that I have to open every price list. Can we do from here?
No, you don't. You cannot change it from the zoom here.
Okay. Individually, I have to.
You can go to basic information.
Okay.
And in basic information, you can insert any price list that you want or all the price list that you want. And from here, you can untick multiple.
Okay, I got it.
And if you want all the selection in here the same, you can right-click on the status that you want and initialize for the full column to be the same.
Okay.
And you could have multiple plants here. If I take out the plant filter in the first line, I can go and pick up every single price list from the database and manage activity status. So that is from basic information on prices. Or if you want to do it for a single price list, then you can tick or untick from here.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So for price list, same as we've seen for the ingredient, you can save as if you want to duplicate your price list. And you can save as multi-plant if you want to have a copy of this price list on multiple Allix plants. Now, for codes of your price list, it looks like your prices are changed every month. Is that correct?
Yes, we are taking the cost every month. ঠিক আছে তো প্রত্যেক মাসে চেঞ্জ করি আমরা
আর প্রতি মাস কি সপ্তাহেও হয়
না সপ্তাহে মুশকিল হয়ে যাবে না
ম্যাডাম
এভারেজ 15 দিনে আমরা নিতে পারি
ম্যাডাম ইট ইজ পসিবল ম্যাডাম it is possible for import export from Excel file to here.
So copy and paste from Excel file is possible. Yes.
Charlotte, this price list, can we name for this bi-monthly, like monthly twice if we are changing the price, that is every 15 days?
So first, I would not recommend this kind of coding system because when you have a lot of price lists, this is not going to be very easy to use. What I would recommend instead is to have something more of this kind. Because if all of your price lists are in this format, maybe with a week 1 and then later on a week 2, if you want.
Okay.
But if they are from this kind of codes, then when you are in the Zoom, it will be very easy to right-click and have either an ascending or descending sort. And the sorting order will be a chronological order. While this would not give you a chronological order, and it would make it very difficult to read and play around with the list. So I would recommend using this for every factory for your lists.
Okay, and what should be the name here? How should we put the price list name?
Name is whatever you want. Usually, personally, what I do is that I would have in here December 2023, for example.
Month name.
Yeah. Or maybe if it is a specific list for specific information, like if there is a week where you have some raw materials that are not available, I could put in bracket the exact date I use this price list on, or the exact reason I use this price list on. But usually I will do this for the code so that it is easy to sort. Whatever is readable for the name. And if you have extra information, you can keep it in remark.
Okay.
Now, same as with raw materials. If you have a lot of price lists that you want to show or modify or compare, we have a price list by column screen. In this price list by column, we can use the same icon we had earlier on raw material to add columns, which will let us add whatever price list we want to see. And then either you insert the ingredient that you want to see, or you click enter the price to see everything that is currently set up. Once again, we can hide the date so that it's easy to compare the value. We have the sensitivity if we want to highlight differences. And if we want to show difference in a graph, we can select the data we want and we can ask to have it in a graph. Take that one out, for example, and let me just take the one that was very much higher than the other one out. So I can see that way the evolution of my prices from month to month.
These are not the same type of raw material.
It depends on what you selected. In my case, I have fairly different ingredients there.
No, like one graph we can make, Charlotte. Like, can we select, suppose
like all the maize or all the soybean.
Maize for this 4 months.
Yeah, yeah.
How it will come? Yeah, this is the maize price.
Okay.
Yes, the graph will depend on what you selected. So if you select just the value that you want to actually compare, your graph will be more interesting than me randomly selecting data. Okay, for this price list by column. So if you want to put in data from Excel, what you could do is do it from this screen. What you have to be careful with is that the raw material would need to be in the same order in your Excel file and in Allix. Okay?
Okay.
So any question on price management?
So, so for price management, like we have like different types of option, like CGM or DDGS or this type of raw material. If we want to choose in the formulation according to the price, like which one is least cost. So how can you do that?
So in formulation, you will tell Allix that these whatever ingredients are available and you want to use this price list, and Allix is going to do the least cost choice. From what is available, Allix is going to say it is more interesting to use this ingredient instead of that one because the quality on price ratio is more interesting with one ingredient or the other.
Okay. Okay, please carry on.
Okay, so so that is all that I had planned for today. What I would suggest is, so we have a session planned for next week, I think, at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, for the 13th, 13th at the same time. If you have time until then, set up the equations so that we can go over any question that you might have in the meantime. And otherwise, next week, we are going to go into the formulation itself and go over all the tools from single formulation. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Perfect. So I will send you the same kind of link for next week as I did for today. And if you have question until next week, please just let me know.
Sure. Thank you.
Amit, if you don't mind, I will keep your computer for a few more minutes to make sure that the rights management is set up.
Yes, you can do.
Okay.
You can continue.
So anyone else, please feel free to go. I'm just going to make sure that rights management is activated there.
Okay.
So like we can leave now.
Okay.
Everyone apart from you, Amit, because
Yes.
I still need your computer.
I'm there.